Well, the Swiss Financial Center has done recently extremely well. We went through a major change of paradigm in the last 10 years, but I believe that numbers are now showing that this period of time is behind us and that we are looking forwards. Results for banks in general and for wealth management and asset management banks last year in 2017 were very good, and I believe that for this year it would be the same. Markets have been very supportive, but also the banks have been able to reorganize themselves, to reinvent themselves sometimes, and the results are coming now, so I'm quite optimistic.
Is that necessary these days for banks to reinvent themselves?
I believe you have always to reinvent yourself, but technology is coming, different way of investing are coming, but knowing what the history is also very important, and knowing to do what you have to do is also very important. So experience is also a great way to invest on the future.
What are some of the biggest challenges facing the banking industry here in Switzerland on a short term and on a longer term?
I believe we have two major tasks or two major challenges now, or three maybe. The first is certainly to have competitive conditions cadres, as we say in French, the way to do business. That's very important. Second is that Switzerland is a very small country, so most of our clients are abroad, are living abroad, so we need market access, which is a very important challenge. And also new technologies are certainly a challenge that all banks have to deal with.
Well, let's talk about competitiveness for a start, because the IMD is releasing information that says that Switzerland's becoming less competitive. It's dropped some places when it comes to competitiveness. Do you think we need to do more?
We always need to do more, but I also have seen this study and I saw that Switzerland is still in the first four, which is very good results compared to many other financial centers. I also saw that in terms of finance, we are still extremely well placed, first or second, so it's very important for us. But those studies shows that you have to be competitive, you have to have a strong condition cadre, you have to have a stable political system, stable tax system, competent people, and that's what we need in order to be sure that banks remains competitive on an international level.
So they are timely reminders then for us to
yes, but we
stay
don't
on our
need
toes.
those type of study to be reminded that you have to be on the top.
In the longer term, what are some of the challenges facing Swiss banking?
I believe, as I said before, that one of the very important challenges is market access. Switzerland is not part of the EU. A lot of our clients are living in European countries, and in a world where protectionism is more and more present, it's a big challenge for us. So we are trying to convince, but it's a very important political problem in Switzerland, to develop those relations and to have more access to the European markets and also abroad, by the way.
Just explain to me how much of an impact this market access issue with Europe poses for you.
Today, for example, when a client comes to Switzerland, you can do whatever you want. You can propose all your services. When you are in another countries where the clients are living, in fact, you can only answer their questions. You can't offer them services. You can't discuss about performance. You can't discuss about new products, about anything. You can only answer to clients' questions. It's not very efficient to be competitive.
How will this play out, do you think?
I believe it's a very important political problem in Switzerland. We have to decide one day what are our relations with Europe. We know that Switzerland will not be part of the European Union. We know that we have extremely efficient bilateral agreement, but we know also that those agreements are sometimes put into questions. And as you know, in Switzerland, you vote a lot and you vote for many things. And there are a lot of subjects which are coming on the table, and all those problems have to be solved before we can try to negotiate something new, like a service agreement.
What is the biggest problem?
Free movement of people, I would say, and also what we call the institutional agreement, which is a way to simplify the relation between Switzerland and Europe, where we have many agreements, many treaties all together, and this has to be simplified, but in Swiss political terms, it's extremely sensitive.
So what needs to be done politically?
I believe that Switzerland need one day or another to decide, and the Swiss population need one day or another to decide what we want exactly. Do we want? I know that we don't want to be part of Europe. Do we want to continue with those bilateral agreements and be open to the rest of the world, or at least Europe, or do we want to be a sort of an island without any agreement, at least not the bilateral agreement as we have them, as we know them now, and be more focused on ourselves? It's two different ways to do politics. It's two different ways to see the future of Switzerland. Obviously, I would prefer the bilateral agreement and even reinforcing them, because I believe it has shown it is extremely efficient. Maybe one of those votes we will have to go through in the next few years will allow us, I hope it will allow us to decide really what we want for the future of Switzerland.
You obviously have clients in Europe. Who are your target markets in Europe?
I would say that for private banks or banks doing private banking, on average, it's a rough number, but I would say 1/3 of our clients are domiciled in Switzerland. They are Swiss and foreigner domiciled in Switzerland. 1/3 are domiciled in Europe, and 1/3 are domiciled in the rest of the world, being Middle East, Asia, Eastern Europe, America, whatever, South America. So it shows that the European market is extremely important for us. It's a lot of jobs, it's a lot of revenues, and once more, in order to attract those clients, you more and more have to be present in the country of domicile of those clients. And it's extremely difficult to do, it's very expensive. And at the end of the day, the question is extremely simple. Do we want to create jobs in Switzerland, or do we want to create jobs abroad? I'm sure that Swiss banks will always be strong, but the question is are they going to be stronger in Switzerland, or are they going to be stronger abroad? And as a Swiss citizen, I would prefer to be able to create jobs, to create revenues, to create income and taxes in Switzerland rather than abroad.
So how do you see the future of private banking in Switzerland then?
I believe that, as I said, Swiss banks will remain leaders in private banking because we have the talent, because we have the expertise, we have the international vision of investing, we have a very stable political and juridical system. So there are a lot of advantages for the Swiss financial centers, and it's why it remains the largest one, but it's maybe not growing as fast as other financial centers.
Does it have a positive image right now?
I think so. We went through difficult times, but I believe that we have shown that we were able to go through those problems, that we were able to settle the past one way or another, and that we are looking for the future now.
And so banking secrecy is no part of Swiss banking these days?
Yes, it is completely, because privacy is still very important. The only difference is that it's not protecting tax evasion anymore. But it's still very important to protect your privacy, because when you live in certain place around the world, you want your assets to be safe, to be protected from the public, and it's like when you go to the doctor or to the priest, you don't want all your data being public. So bank secrecy is still extremely strong. It's still in the law, but it doesn't protect tax evasion anymore, which is good, by the way.
You talk about creating jobs here in Switzerland and really cementing your position here in Switzerland. But the future of banking, is that not leaning towards more job losses with the introduction of technology?
I believe it depends on which activities of banking. It's for sure that there are a lot of things which will be and have already been automatized. That's for sure. But I believe that the personal relation, especially in private banking or asset management, remains extremely important, because you have to understand the needs of your clients. You have to understand the history of your clients, their tolerance to risk, and so on. And a machine cannot do that. So I'm very sure that there will be a lot of changes, a lot of adaptation, but it will also create jobs in certain areas. I'm pretty sure. You don't know, in technology there will be a lot of jobs created. In compliance, we already see a lot of new jobs being created in risk management. So yes, there will be more automatization, but there also will be more human perception and human intervention.
How do you see Geneva as a financial hub?
Geneva in Switzerland is more focused on wealth management, when Zurich is more focused on investment banking, corporate banking, credit, and so on. So I believe that those two financial centers are extremely complementary somewhere. Geneva is very much open to certain part of the world, when Zurich is maybe open to different ones. So as I said, I believe there is a great complementarity, and the Geneva Financial Center remains relatively strong. It went through reorganization also, but we have seen that in terms of employment, the numbers of employees in the last 10 years are relatively stable. There are certainly new jobs which have been created and old jobs which have disappeared, but it remains relatively strong, not as strong as it was before.
But Geneva and Switzerland are seen as very different financial hubs. You just said it yourself, but there is some kind of crossover now. I mean, we've been speaking to Boris Colladi, for example, from Julius Baer. He's made the move to Pictet in Geneva. Is that significant?
Oh, it's great. It's important. Maybe it shows that Geneva exists in terms of banking when somebody like Boris moved to Geneva. But we have the strongest private banks in Geneva. The two large banks are very present and very active in Switzerland. We have a very strong cantonal bank. We have a lot of foreign banks who have a site in Switzerland. We have seen that two Chinese banks are just coming to Geneva. So there are a lot of advantages. But once more, I don't believe that we have to put those two or three financial centers in Switzerland in competition. They are more complementary than anything else.
So increasingly, Chinese banks are coming to Geneva. How about Mirabaud in Asia?
Mirabaud has chosen not to be in Asia for different reasons. We are much more active in the Middle East. It was a strategic choice that we made.
It's an interesting one, though, because
it's very successful.
It's a massive market that everyone's desperate to get a piece of.
It's a huge market. They look a lot for the competences, the security. You have very high quality people there, a lot of wealth creation somewhere. So it's a strategic decision we made. We believe that for Mirabaud, Asia was certainly a too difficult market, but it's a decision which is certainly very well short, medium terms. We'll see longer term if it was the right choice or not.
And why does the Middle East appeal to you?
You know, we are very opportunistic people, so we go where there are opportunities, and we felt that there was an opportunity. It's also very much linked to the person you are working with, to the relationship manager you are able to attract, to the clients they are able to attract. So it was very much an opportunity rather than a strategic choice. The strategic choice was for now not to be in Asia.
But never say never.
Exactly.
So we've covered competitiveness, market access. One of the other challenges you mentioned earlier was technology and new innovation in banking. How do you see blockchain in that?
Well, blockchain is one part, a very important part, and a very new development which will have a huge impact. What I would add more generally about technology, excuse me, is that we are now moving from a time where there was a huge competition between what has been called fintechs and banks, where basically we heard that fintechs were saying that banks will disappear because they will take all the market. What we have seen now is that the fintech, which are sometimes extremely successful and extremely useful, have discovered one thing, is that they are lacking one important element, is the clients, and that the banks have the clients, and that there is much more cooperation now between the banks and those fintech companies. So I find it's extremely positive, and there are a lot of synergy that are able to be built between those new types of company and the banks, and it's very complementary somewhere. And it's a major change from a few years ago where it was much more shown as a competition between them. It's much more seen as a partnership now, and that's very important. Blockchain is linked to new technologies, linked to the cryptocurrencies. There is a lot of noise around that. There are a lot of speculation around that. But I believe blockchain is a major change in the way we will live in the future somewhere. But I'm not a very good specialist on those new technologies.
But Mirabaud would be working with blockchain in the future.
We have already our internal blockchain because it's the way you are organized. But are we going to be leaders in this field? No, I don't believe so. But we have to be able to offer to our clients what they need and what they ask for, and we have also to be organized in the most efficient way. And those new technologies are part of those efficient way.
And what about cryptocurrencies? I mean, they're almost separate, really.
I don't know. I believe that there is a lot of speculation in it. I see it personally a little bit like the tech companies at the end of the 90s, where you had all those companies which were exploding on the market, IPOs and so on. And after the crisis, the tech crisis in early 2000, most of them disappeared, a lot of them or most of them disappeared, but today you have the Amazon, you have the Google, you have the Apple and so on, and I see the cryptocurrencies a little bit the same. A lot of these things are going to disappear, but some of them will certainly be present for the foreseeable future.
Here in Switzerland, with the Crypto Valley, we are really kind of putting ourselves out there when it comes to these kind of things.
Yes, I hope not too much, because I guess that there could be some problems in the future. So I hope it's not going to be the next bank secrecy problem or whatever. But it's important for Switzerland to be on the top of technology, of new technologies, and to be able to deal with those new tools. But it has to be regulated one way or another. And today there start to be some new initiative, but we are not there yet.
Where else is banking disruption coming from these days?
Politic, maybe, in terms of investments. It's true that we live in a very different world. Some people say it's a dangerous world, others say there are a lot of opportunities, but it's true that the way politics is done now and the speed of the decision or the announcement that you see every day or every half an hour certainly makes the life of investments very different.
Are you talking about the Trump effect?
And others.
Such as?
No, but every politicians are doing different things, like what is going to happen in Italy. Where are we going with this very strange coalition? There are politicians who are very little bit old-fashioned. There are politicians who are using new tools to do politics, and it has an impact. And markets are extremely sensitive. Look what happened with the discussion between the US and China, where there are a lot of impact on the market. Also, it creates volatility. Volatility is good for banks. It creates opportunities sometimes, or most of the time. So it's not always negative what I say, but it's a challenge.
So you do feel that the geopolitical situations around the world really do impact banking?
Definitely. We started to have better results from the Brexit, for example, because the Brexit brought volatility in a world where there were no volatility at all for a time. And it brought volatility, it brought opportunities, and then it was the Trump election and all those decisions. And since then, markets have been extremely positive. By the way, there have been more volatility, more opportunities, and our results are very much linked to those type of events.
How strong is Switzerland when it comes to assets under management?
Not as strong as it should be. Swiss banks are definitely very large clients of asset management products, but unfortunately we are not very able to bring asset managers in Switzerland. The large firms are abroad, the large financial centers are London, New York, Hong Kong. For different reasons, Switzerland has not been able to attract this part of the activity as much as it should have been.
Do you think that will change?
I hope, and there are a lot of very successful small asset management companies, or also banks like FINTECH, the Mirabaud, the UBS, and others. But sometimes I'm afraid that Swiss bankers are more comfortable to take the plane than to take the tram to see a successful relationship manager, because they feel maybe more secure to invest with a BlackRock or a Fidelity than with a small local company. But I believe it's a shame, and we should be more supportive of ourselves, because there is a lot of value to create, and there are a lot of very good actors in this area in Switzerland, but we should be more supportive of ourselves, I feel.
Let's talk for a moment about the sovereign currency initiative here in Switzerland, where the vote is coming on the 10th of June for for money creation to be done by the central bank only. It's all in reaction to the financial crisis. What's your take on this?
As you said, it's a reaction of the financial crisis. However, in Switzerland, for example, I didn't see any banks which collapsed. The only one which, between brackets, collapsed was UBS, but it was saved by the states with a profit for the states and the taxpayer. So I don't really see the need of this. It would be a
Some
major
say it's
disruption.
dangerous. I mean, would you go that far?
I think so, because it's an adventure which has not been tested anywhere else, that would restrict drastically the access to credit, which would make the credit more expensive for the clients. I believe it's an intellectual proposition, but it has not been tested, and there is no need for me to test that in Switzerland, by the way, anywhere else neither, but especially not in Switzerland.
And it's yet more regulation, where, you know, Switzerland has already a lot of regulation.
Definitely, definitely.
Finally, if we just change gears for my final questions, the Ball d'Or Mirabaud. What attracted Mirabaud to sponsoring such an event?
First of all, the Ball d'Or is one of the, if not the largest sailing race in a closed lake, with 600 boats starting on the same lines and going from one side of the Geneva Lake to the other side and way back. It's a very famous and very attractive races. It appears that some of my partners were very much involved in sailing, and we had the opportunity a few years ago to be part of this adventure and to be sponsor, first as a co-sponsor and then as the main sponsor for the last few years. I believe it gives a very good image of Geneva and of us linked to this event. It's much more professionalized than it has been before. There are a lot of events. It's attractive for our clients. It's a good way to talk about us. So it's very positive for us all in all.
Are you a sailor yourself?
I'm not.
So what are your passions then outside of work?
Oh, I like outside life. I like skiing in the winter. I like golfing in the summer. Taking use of the lake also. We have a very nice city. I like traveling sometimes also. Usual stuff, I would say.
And also, what else challenges you though outside of work? Do you need any more challenges?
No, it's enough.
And finally, we are CNN Money Switzerland. What does money mean to you?
Oof, that's a difficult question.
I mean, obviously,
I wouldn't
it's your
say it's
livelihood.
happiness, but it's part of it, I believe. I believe we live in a world where money is an important part of everything. I believe that there are people who are more privileged than others, and it's important to support those who are not. It's why we do a lot of charity works also. It's why we pay a lot of taxes sometimes. But it's important. I believe that there are certainly some part of the world where there are a lot of problems. You have to support that also. You have to try to find solution or support the one who are trying to find solution. All this is very important for me, and trying to be a little bit influenced by sometimes supporting others is something very, very interesting, very fascinating, and very important.
Yves Mirabaud, thank you very much indeed.
Welcome.